Recent audit of the Palmetto facility shows ongoing struggles. Senator Jon Ossoff, representing Georgia, joining us now. What is the newest data showing you about where we stand now and the work that still needs to be done?
Well, I'm glad we have this report from the Inspector General at the Postal Service. I don't think it will be a surprise to any Georgians that there have been and remain very serious issues at this Palmetto facility. I have been piling public pressure on USPS for over a year now to improve on-time delivery in Georgia, and we have seen some improvement. But what this IG report makes clear is that the management failures and the execution failures at Palmetto are deep and serious, and many of them continue.
There's a line in it that talks about it's basically one event from, being a catastrophe. What are we talking about that is unraveling the efficiency and efficiency is kind of a stretch when we're so far behind average, but what is the crux of the issue that's happening inside that facility? Because it has been so many months that we've been hearing from viewers about continual problems.
The crux of the issue has been from the very start basic management failures. I mean, I sat in the conference room with senior Postal Service executives over a year ago, and I asked one very simple question. I said, okay, you guys wanted to roll out this new Palmetto facility as your regional distribution center and make these changes to your network. Who was in charge of getting this done well? And there was no answer. So these are basic management failures that have led to chaos and failure at the facility, which now for over a year have significantly impacted on-time delivery in the state. Now, again, on-time delivery has improved with the pressure that I and others have put on the Postal Service, but many of these problems at Palmetto are persistent.
Senator, what would you think would be most important in terms of next steps? What can happen next? Because you've been putting pressure on the USPS for quite a while now. What would the next steps be to create what you would feel would be an acceptable situation?
Well, that pressure culminated in the resignation of the Postmaster General. And from the beginning, this has started at the top. It's been failures at USPS headquarters, failures in the office of the Postmaster General. Postmaster General DeJoy, God love him, was not up to the job. And there's now a new incoming Postmaster General. I am reserving my judgment until I better understand his qualifications and his intentions. But rest assured, I will be putting maximum pressure on him to make solving these problems in Georgia his highest national priority.
Do you feel Georgia's been really at the center of this conversation because of Palmetto, but you see this as a federal issue, not as much a Georgia issue.
Well, sure. I mean, they tried to roll out a similar new facility in Virginia, and it too was a failure. This was former Postmaster General DeJoy's master plan to reshape America's postal network. It just hasn't worked. It hasn't been poorly designed. Excuse me, it's been poorly designed and it's been poorly implemented. And they need to change course. And I hope with new leadership, they'll be in a position to do so.
The reason I ask that, of course, is we know we have neighbors that work in that facility, hardworking people who are going in there every day, who also have expressed to us, in some cases, they want it to be more efficient. They want to provide that service and just don't feel like they're giving the tools to be able to do that.
No, they've been set up to fail. I mean, postal workers are out there every day working their hearts out to deliver the mail on time. But if there's not competent leadership at headquarters, and if the network is not properly designed, and if these big changes are not properly executed, you know, despite their best efforts, we're going to see these service failures.
Appreciate the update on that. Is there anything you want to mention in terms of that new information about Palmetto or what needs to happen in the coming months in this area?
I think we covered it.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about the Senate overnight advancing the bill in terms of foreign aid and public broadcasting. Of course, thinking about GPB here in Georgia. Your thoughts on what happened overnight in the Senate?
This preoccupation with canceling public television and public radio, I don't know what constituency they're trying to appeal to. I think a lot of Georgians appreciate public television, something that their kids can watch, Sesame Street, other programming, local journalism through NPR and otherwise. And in rural areas, uh, public broadcasting is a vital source of information, severe weather alerts. That's true in Georgia. That's true across the country. So at a time when Americans are struggling with the cost of living, why are we spending our time in the US Senate debating whether to defund public television? I think it's sort of a bizarre partisan effort. And I would like for us to restore the Senate's attention to things that really matter to my constituents in Georgia.
A lot of thing that people are talking about that's important to them right now as we consider back to school is the Supreme Court really clearing the path for the Trump administration to dismantle the Department of Education. It's, a little closer to home here because President Jimmy Carter established that in 1979. Can you help people understand how that federal entity does impact schools at a local level?
Well, look, go ask, any local school board or local school superintendent or principal. This effort to abolish the Department of Education is going to create chaos in schools across Georgia, and it's going to threaten critical programs that help disabled students, that support school nutrition programs. We want the Department of Education to work better. I don't think there's great demand from the public to abolish the Department of Education and create all of this chaos in public schools right as the new school year approaches. And so, I always try to work across the aisle, work bringing Republicans and Democrats together to focus on Georgia's needs. What we're seeing right now in Congress, which is all party line partisan stuff, defunding Medicaid and hospitals and nursing homes, canceling public television programming for kids, abolishing the federal Department of Education. This is not the kind of substantive bipartisan work that we need to be doing. And I think whether it's healthcare or education, a lot of Georgians are going to get hurt. There are hundreds of thousands of Georgians who may lose health coverage over the next 18 months because of this massive attack on the Medicaid program, for example.
From where you're sitting, is there much we can do to try to, let's say, if we keep it in the school conversation, to protect the schools? Is that onus just going to come from state money? Moving forward, is there a way to either protect any of that federal money, or will this just now be a state issue and Georgia will have to figure that out? I just can hear the questions that parents will have, like where does that shortfall get resolved?
Well, it's going to be chaos. That's going to be the immediate challenge.
Mm.
Right as we're getting back to school, uh, the administration has frozen funding for after school programs. They just passed a bill that's going to significantly reduce school lunch programs, and they're now working to abolish the federal Department of Education. And I think if we could just return to bipartisan work, if we could say, let's find things that Republicans and Democrats can agree on, that are in the national interest and not one political party's interest, we would be able to do better work on behalf of the public. But this is a pretty radical and partisan agenda, and I think it's going to create a lot of chaos for Georgia schools, not just in this coming school year, but in years to come.
Senator Ossoff, you just got a report that you wanted to share about. This is just coming in just moments ago.
Yeah, I'm just seeing this report. It's breaking news here. It's a report that the administration has frozen $140 million. Again, this is a report of funding for the CDC to fight the fentanyl crisis. I'm demanding answers on this. The fentanyl crisis, the opioid crisis, I don't think there's a single family in Georgia that has not been impacted. And the CDC, based here in Georgia, does really important work preventing overdose and preventing opioid abuse. So if the administration has frozen all this funding for the CDC to address the fentanyl crisis, we need answers and we need them swiftly.
It's interesting because much of the tariff conversation has been about trying to control the stream. What the Trump administration says is the stream of fentanyl from particularly Canada, Mexico. But here, in contrast to that, is an organization based here in Atlanta that has the resources to address kind of this issue, boots on the ground, that you're saying would lose tremendous funding and backing.
Well, according to this report, $140 million may be frozen that the CDC would otherwise be using to fight the fentanyl crisis. So we need answers on this from the administration immediately.
All right. Well, we'll make some calls to the CDC as well. Senator Ossoff, as you hear more about that, please let us know.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Senator.
Take
Good to
care.
see you.
Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.